You've got a sleeveless top in your closet right now that you love and never wear, and for years you've been quietly blaming your arms for it. I've styled enough women to tell you, with total confidence, that it was almost never the arms. It was the top. 9 times out of 10, it's a construction problem the manufacturer built into that garment before it ever reached the rack. And once I show you what to look for, you'll spot it in about 10 seconds. Standing in the shop, top still on the hanger, before you waste a single trip to the fitting room or a single disappointing minute in front of that mirror. This isn't learn to love your arms talk. These are the 7 things I physically check on every sleeveless top before I'll let a client buy it. Here's the first, and it's the one that sinks more sleeveless tops than the other 6 combined. Look at the armhole. In the trade, we call it the arm sigh. That's the shaped opening your arm passes through, and the very first thing I check is its depth. Pull almost any sleeveless top off a rack from the last 20 years, and you'll see the sigh cut deep and wide, scooping low down the side seam toward the waist. There's a reason, and it has nothing to do with you. Those blocks were graded off fit models in their 20s, where the side of the body and the underarm sit taut and close. So a deep sigh lies flat against them. Put that identical armhole on a mature frame, with the perfectly normal softening that every body earns along the upper arm and the side. And it can't lie flat. It stands away, it gapes, and a gaping sigh does something specific and unkind. It opens a little window straight to the side of your bra and the soft flesh under the arm, and the eye is helpless against it. Because the eye is pulled to any open edge before it registers anything else. So the top reads as revealing. You feel exposed, and you conclude it's your arm. It is not. It's a hole cut for a 25-year-old's rib cage. Here's what to ask for by name, because naming it changes how salespeople treat you. A higher, tighter armhole. Some labels market it as a modesty armhole or a smart cut. It sits up closer to the underarm crease and doesn't plunge toward the waist, so it stays sealed against the body with no gap. And here's the fitting room test I teach every client. 10 seconds flat. Put the top on and lift your arm straight out to the side, like you're pointing at the far wall. Now look down into the armhole. If you can see your bra, the side of your body. Daylight. That sigh is cut too deep. Full stop. And it's the drafting, not you. A properly cut high armhole stays closed even with the arm raised. And if you already own a beloved top that gapes just slightly, don't retire it. A fine strapped camisole layered underneath closes the window and buys you years more wear. That's one thing handled. The next is a detail so small most women have genuinely never looked at it directly. A thin line lying across the shoulder that your eye is reacting to whether you clock it or not. That line is the strap. So many of the pretty summer tops arrive on spaghetti straps, those delicate little cords over the shoulder that photograph beautifully on the hanger and betray you the moment they're on a real body. The mechanism is contrast, pure and simple. A thin strap lays a hard, narrow, high-contrast line across the top of the shoulder, and a shoulder that's softened with the decades, which is every shoulder, eventually. Reads as a gentle curve, so that crisp little cord sits in sharp visual opposition to the soft shape beneath it. Contrast is exactly what the human eye hunts for. It's how we find edges. So the eye snaps to that strap, then immediately to the contrast between the hard cord and the soft shoulder. And the strap ends up doing the one thing you'd never choose, pointing, like a little arrow, at the softness. There is nothing wrong with the shoulder. A thin, hard line was simply the worst possible thing to draw across it. The fix is width. You want a strap closer to an inch and a half, or, better still, a proper cap sleeve or a wide modesty strap that caps the ball of the shoulder. Width distributes the visual weight across the whole shoulder instead of concentrating it in one hard line. So the strap and the shoulder read as a single continuous shape with no edge for the eye to catch. And there's a practical dividend a stylist never forgets. A wide strap hides your bra straps, killing yet another line the eye would otherwise chase. So when you lift a sleeveless top off the rack, Check the strap before anything else. Is this a thin little wire, or does it have the width to sit soft and broad on the shoulder? That single glance saves you a dozen sad purchases. And I want you to hold on to the pattern that's already forming, because it's the master key to all of this. The eye goes to hard lines and open gaps. Keep it in your pocket. It's about to explain the next one, which isn't about how the top is cut at all. It's about what it's made of. And it's the difference between fabric that flatters you and fabric that quietly turns on you the instant you move. Pick the top up and actually work the fabric between your fingers. So much of what's on the racks now, especially at the lower price points, is a soft, slippery, clingy knit. A thin jersey, a slinky poly spandex, something that pours over your hand like water and feels gorgeous doing it. Now watch what that same fabric does on a body. With no weight and no structure of its own, it surrenders completely. It becomes a second skin, tracing every contour of the arm and torso, catching and re-clinging every time you shift. There's no air, no space, no buffer between the cloth and you. That's precisely why a clingy top can leave you feeling exposed even when it covers every inch. The fabric has given up all its own architecture and simply reports whatever is underneath it. In the trade, we'd say it has no hand and no body. What you want is fabric with structure, enough weight and body to hold a little of its own shape and fall away from the frame instead of gripping it. Think woven cotton, linen, cotton-linen blends, a substantial ponte, a fluid crepe with some heft. These have hand. They fall with architecture, skimming the arm rather than clutching it, leaving that small, flattering pocket of air between cloth and skin. Linen is the queen of summer sleeveless for exactly this reason. It drapes with a slightly crisp, structured fall that reads unmistakably expensive. And it breathes in real heat, which is the entire point of going sleeveless in the first place. Here's the 1-second test I do on the rack. Pinch a section of the fabric, scrunch it in your fist, and let go. Or simply lift the top by the shoulders and watch how the body of it hangs. If it falls dead flat and limp, like a wet dishcloth, and holds the crease from your fist, put it back. It'll cling and it'll crush. If it falls with a soft, self-supporting shape and springs back, that's your top. You can feel the difference between clingy and structured with your fingertips before you ever set foot in the fitting room. And once your hands know that difference, a pretty hanger can never fool you again, which matters enormously for the next trick. Because this one isn't about correcting a flaw at all. It's about quietly directing where a stranger's eye lands the very first second they look at you. And I'll be honest, it's my favorite one, because it's the closest thing styling has to sleight of hand. Here's the single fact the whole trick rests on. The eye travels to the highest point of contrast and interest first, and it goes there before it goes anywhere else. People don't scan you evenly, top to bottom. They lock onto the most interesting thing near the top and start there. So you decide what that thing is. A low scoop or a deep V leaves the upper chest as a wide, plain, empty field. The eye finds nothing up high to hold it, so it slides straight down the open expanse and lands squarely on the arms, but put something worth looking at up at the neckline, and the eye stops there, at the collarbone and the face, the features you most want seen and the ones, frankly, that carry the most elegance at any age. Understand this isn't concealment. You're not hiding the arm. You're giving the eye a more magnetic destination, so it never bothers to make the trip down there at all. The most powerful instrument for that is the boat neck. A bateau neckline that runs straight and wide across from shoulder point to shoulder point. Riding high near the collarbone, it draws a strong horizontal across the top of you, and that single line pulls double duty. It sweeps the eye sideways and up toward the face, and it visually broadens the shoulder line, which by simple contrast makes the waist read narrower. The balanced, hourglass proportion we're always chasing, mock necks, well-cut crew necks, a substantial cowl, all work on the same logic, interest and a framing line held high. Near the face, a deep plunge does the exact opposite, cracking the upper body wide open and firing the eye downward with nothing to arrest it. So treat the neckline as your redirection tool, and choose it deliberately. The higher and more structured it sits, the more relentlessly it holds attention where you want it. Which brings me to the one I most wanted you to have, because this is the hidden culprit. The reason a top can fit you flawlessly everywhere else and still gape in the one spot that spoils the whole thing. Almost no one thinks to check it. Most tailors won't mention it unless you ask, and the fix costs less than a nice lunch. It's the shoulder seam, and specifically, where it actually lands on your body versus where the pattern assumed it would. Every piece of ready-to-wear is built on a standard block that bakes in an average shoulder slope and an average shoulder width. But shoulders are among the most individual things about us. And here's the part that matters after 60. Shoulder slope and posture shift with time. The shoulders often round a little forward. The slope tends to soften and drop. So the shoulder seam, the seam engineered to sit precisely on the point of your shoulder, frequently lands in the wrong place on your real body. And this is the domino nobody sees. If that seam sits even a half-inch too far out toward the arm, it drags the entire arm side outboard with it. An armhole that was drafted perfectly well is now hanging in the wrong position on you, and it gapes. So you can have the right size, the right fabric, a high sigh, and it still yawns open under the arm, and you would swear on everything that it's your arm. It isn't. It's a seam sitting a half-inch off, towing the whole armhole out of place. And the remedy is almost insultingly simple, which is exactly why I refuse to let women throw these tops away. It's a shoulder seam alteration. A tailor lifts and takes in that seam, tapering the raise from the armhole side up toward the neck, which walks the whole side back into its proper position and closes the gape. Honest pricing, because I'd rather you trust me than be charmed. At a neighborhood alterations shop that's usually somewhere around $20 to $40, a fuller armhole reshape at a higher-end tailor can run $75 to $125. Either way, it's a fraction of what the top cost, and a rounding error against giving up on something you love. Here's how to know a top's a candidate, and you can run this at your mirror tonight on anything already hanging up. Put it on. Find the gaping sigh. Then gently press the shoulder seam a little toward your neck with 2 fingers. If the gap tightens and closes as you nudge that seam inward, there's your diagnosis. Right there in the glass. The top doesn't fit wrong because of your body. It fits wrong because the seam is parked too far out, and a tailor can move it in 15 minutes. That's the whole difference between binning a top in frustration and wearing it another 10 years. It was never your arm. It was half an inch of seam. And the next trick dismantles a false choice you were probably handed your entire life, that your only 2 options are bare or covered, when there's a whole elegant middle almost nobody talks about. That middle is the lightweight open topper, a thin, airy layer worn open over the sleeveless top, and it's the piece I reach for most on a client who's nervous about arms but refuses to swelter. Here's the mechanic. An open topper hangs in 2 soft vertical columns of fabric down the sides of the body, past the shoulder and along the arm, framing the arm without covering it and without trapping any real heat. It hands the eye a clean, structured vertical edge to follow instead of the bare shoulder-to-arm transition, and it does all that while leaving you nearly as cool as fully sleeveless, because it's open, unstructured, and barely there. You get the framing and the breeze in one move, which is the whole trick. The discipline is in choosing the right topper, because the wrong one erases the entire benefit. You want genuinely lightweight and open, an unlined or half-lined linen blazer worn unbuttoned, a loose open knit or mesh cardigan, a gauzy kimono with real drape and movement. What you avoid is the heavy, dense, closed cardigan, because it just piles on bulk and warmth and slams shut the airiness that made sleeveless appealing in the first place. If I had to send you out the door with one piece, it's an unlined linen jacket worn open. It reads pulled together and intentional rather than covering up. It moves beautifully as you walk, and it keeps you cool in July. Hear the reframe. Because it matters. You were never actually trapped between fully bare and fully swaddled. There's a comfortable, genuinely elegant middle, and the open topper lives right in the center of it, which leaves the seventh. And it's the one that decides whether the other six even get noticed, because everything up to now has treated the top in isolation. This last one is about context, and context is where an outfit either resolves into something elegant or quietly collapses into shapelessness. It's proportion, defining the waist. Here's the trap it springs you from. You can execute all 6 of the previous moves perfectly and then let the top hang dead straight from the shoulders like a rectangle. No shape drawn through the body. And the entire look goes heavy and formless. When fabric falls in a straight drop from the widest point up top, the eye reads your whole silhouette as one undifferentiated block, and finding no waypoint anywhere in the middle, it drifts right back up to the shoulders and arms, quietly undoing everything you just built. But define a waist, and something lovely happens instantly. You create an anchor at the center of the body, and the eye travels down and settles there, reading an hourglass instead of a column. You've handed attention a place to rest that is emphatically not the arms, and manufactured flattering proportion in the same stroke. And building that waist costs you nothing you don't already own. Cinch a slim belt over the top at the natural waist. Or do a front tuck, just the front hem tucked into the waistband, the back left to fall loose, which is the easiest, most casual way in the world to imply a waist with zero commitment. Or pair the top with a high-waisted trouser or skirt that sits at the natural waist, so the waistline is engineered into the outfit whether the top cooperates or not. A gently A-line or fit and flare cut through the body of the top itself does the same work, sweeping the eye down and in and away from the arm. However you get there, the principle is the one to carry out the door, define the waist, and you give the whole outfit an anchor, a place for the eye to land, dead center. So the arms simply dissolve into a balanced, elegant whole, and that is the single idea underneath all 7. Sit with it a second, because it really is the whole thing. The eye follows structure, contrast, and direction. It does not follow skin. A gaping sigh is an open edge the eye falls into. A thin strap is a hard line it snags on. Clingy fabric traces what structured fabric skims. A low neckline fires the eye down. A boat neck holds it up at the face. A seam a half-inch off drags an armhole out of true. An open topper hands the eye a clean vertical. A defined waist gives it somewhere to rest. Every one of these is you taking command of structure, contrast, and direction. And not a single one is about your arms, your age, or anything at all about you personally. This entire conversation, from the first check to the last, has been about fabric, cut, and construction. It was never once about you. So here's what I genuinely want you to carry away. More than any single trick, you have every right to be cool and comfortable and beautiful in the summer heat without a half-second's hesitation, exactly as you are, this morning, in the body you have right now. Nothing about you needs to change for one word of this to work. The only things that change are the details of what you reach for on the rack, the depth of a sigh, the width of a strap, the hand of a fabric, the height of a neckline, the seat of a shoulder seam, the drape of a topper, the shape at your waist. That is all it ever was. So that top you love and never wear, the one that started all this, go pull it off the hanger this week and look at it again with these 7 eyes. Not at yourself, at the top, and you'll know, in about 10 seconds, exactly what it's been doing wrong all this time. And whether it's a 3-second fix or a $20 one. If you'd like, tell me which of the 7 caught you off guard. With most women, it's the shoulder seam, because no one ever told them a top could be walked back into shape for the price of a couple of coffees. I read what people write, and there's more of this every single week.